Out of all of the videos I've made about egg donation, I think this might be the most important one because the agency that you choose to represent you as an egg donor should be your biggest advocate. And they are like your lifeline in many ways. If anybody treats you poorly, they should be stepping in and protecting you. If anything happens to you emotionally, mentally, physically, they should be there to support you. The tricky thing is, a lot of agencies, they're supporting the intended parents and you. It's not like two lawyers where, you have one lawyer and the other side has another lawyer. It's like the agency is trying to meet the needs of both you and the intended parents. And unfortunately, sometimes those needs might conflict. But that's okay. There's plenty of agencies that are able to beautifully handle that and support, the intended parents while also supporting the donors. My mom owns an egg donation agency, and my mom mainly supports and works with the egg donors, and then her business partner mainly works and supports the intended parents. So it's a great partnership. Everybody has a very strong advocate. They're very open, they're very ethical. So how to find this great agency? First of all, do not just choose the agency that's willing to give you the most amount of money or says that they'll get you the most amount of money. A lot of times agencies just throw up like whatever number on their website, but you might not actually be able to get paid that number. So don't make it all about money. A lot of it depends on the state where you're donating. So, a lot of states in the South, donors typically don't make more than like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. In California, for example, some donors make upwards of $20,000. It depends. How many times you've been a donor determines how much you'll make. How successful those cycles were makes a big difference. You might have been a donor 5 times, but if a pregnancy never resulted, you might not be able to make that much money. Your health, your medical background, your genetics, what you look like, unfortunately, is such a big part of egg donation. So a lot of that will determine how much you will get paid. So again, don't really base your decision on what agency you go with. Don't solely base it on money. And a lot of agencies allow you to sign up with other agencies as well. So you might select a few agencies, but you really want to make sure that all of those agencies are ethical, are going to support you. They're going to be your advocate. They're not going to treat you like an object that's just there for the benefit of the intended parents. They'll treat you as an equal, and to understand that you are an equal to the intended parents. All parties are in a partnership. Okay, so one of the first things to look out for is to make sure that the agency is a member of SEEDS, SEEDS. So this is a nonprofit dedicated to holding agencies accountable to ensure that they have ethical practices. SEEDS also, provides pretty intense standards that agencies need to meet. So it's really, really important that you find an agency that is a member of SEEDS. Something else that for me is sometimes a red flag is if an agency sends donors out of the country for egg donation cycles. This doesn't necessarily equal a scam or even a situation that could be dangerous for the donor. Sometimes I'm sure cycles that are done out of the country are fine, but you're just not able to be as protected when you're doing a cycle with a clinic out of the country. Legally, I think you get into some kind of gray areas. I think it's best to not go with an agency that sends women out of the country. Again, not always a red flag, but something that I personally would stay away from. Okay, you wanna ask them how many years they've been in business, what their experience is, specifically what their case manager's experience is. So for example, my mom, she has been a fertility nurse for 20 years. She's worked in numerous fertility clinics. She really knows the ins and outs of this industry. She's an RN, so if a donor calls and has certain pain or whatever, she can, you know, provide legitimate, knowledgeable support. Um, so it's really important to hear what the background is of, you know, the owners of the agency and the main people that you will be working with. Some agencies hire people that have absolutely no experience in the fertility industry, and that's not really going to help you. So you want to make sure that they have been in business for many, many years. You want to make sure that they have highly qualified employees. Let's see. You want to make sure that they have a good philosophy about egg donation as well. So going through their website can help you get a bit of an understanding about what this philosophy is, but I also think it's really helpful to actually call them. Sometimes they don't want to be called before you've actually sent in the application and whatnot, but if you sent in the application, they've accepted you, you know that it could be a relationship that you can move forward with, then I would give them a call, ask them these questions just to get a sense of how they treat you. If they're treating you like you're just like a potential business partner and they're very straightforward and they don't treat you like a human, you want them to be warm. You want them to care about you and your questions and to want to make you feel comfortable. That is, to me, a really important factor of finding a good agency. Okay. Okay, so you want to make sure that they meet FDA compliance, that they follow ASRM guidelines, HIPAA guidelines. You want to ask about their donor match rate. How often do they actually make matches? You know, ask if they have good relationships with clinics. Do clinics refer to them? You want to make sure that people are actually looking at their donor database. If it's just an egg donor agency that nobody knows about, that's not going to help you get a match. I would also ask them about their criteria for intended parents. You know, what type of people are they going to match you with? What does that look like? A number of years in business, history of lawsuits. You know, I mean, if it's not a reputable agency, if you ask them if they've been sued, they might not be honest, but it's nice to ask, have you been sued before? What's your history with that? Hopefully you can at least get somewhat of a sense. Reviews can be really helpful. There's some great egg donor agencies out there that aren't really active on places like Yelp and whatnot, so I wouldn't just go off of reviews. If an agency doesn't have a lot of reviews, I wouldn't take that as a bad sign. But if an agency has bad reviews, that can be really telling. So I would see if you can find some reviews. I would look them up on the Better Business Bureau. If anything really bad has happened, hopefully that will be listed there. What else? I would also, I would ask about communication, because the thing with the egg donor agency is they're going to be the primary go-between between you and the clinic, and definitely you and the intended parents. If it's an anonymous cycle, you won't be communicating with the intended parents at all. It'll all be through the clinic or the agency. Once you're actively in cycle, the clinic will probably be communicating with you more directly, but if anything wonky happens with the clinic, you should always be able to go to the agency and they should be able to take care of any problems for you. So essentially, you need to make sure that they are great communicators, that they are willing to communicate in the way that you prefer to communicate. So for example, if you really prefer phone calls over email or text, you need to make sure that they will pick up the phone and that, you know, you'll have the cell phone number of the case manager or whatever. But I would definitely discuss communication and make sure that that's something they're really vigilant about, and that it's not going to be impossible for you to get a hold of them once the cycle starts. So they need to be good at communication. You need to also be upfront and say, are you honest with your donors? You know, for example, if you say that intended parents are interested in me, are you going to tell me if they're also looking at other donors? Are you going to tell me when they actually send in the deposit and the match is like for sure confirmed? Make sure that they are going to be completely honest and upfront with you. And then again, when you're talking to them, when you're having this initial conversation, just tune into how compassionate, warm, attentive they are. You don't want to be with this like cold clinical agency. The clinic might be like that, but again, they're a clinic. Sometimes that just comes with the territory. But a lot of times, everybody that works at the clinic is incredibly lovely. But the agency, everybody at the agency needs to be warm, kind, attentive. Tune into your intuition as well. If you're looking at their website, if you're talking to them and something just feels off, if you just don't feel like you can trust them, trust that instinct and find a different agency. Absolutely. And also know that you don't have to find an agency that's in your area. I've known women that live in San Francisco, for example, and they've signed up with agencies in Los Angeles, and they just travel to Los Angeles for the cycle. So you don't have to narrow your search to just the agencies in your area. If you're willing to travel, that's an important part of it. You have to be willing to travel if you sign up with an agency somewhere else. And speaking of travel, ask them about how they coordinate travel. Make sure that they're, paying for your flight, for example. Sometimes you might have to pay for some things and you're reimbursed. Ask them about reimbursement, how quick they're about that, about when they get you your first check when you start medications, how soon after the retrieval they're going to pay you your full fee. Really ask them about the breakdown of, how payment is sent, again, how you are reimbursed. Tune into like how organized they are. Do they have a patient portal that seems pretty organized? How are they communicating? Do they seem all over the place, or are they very straightforward with, what needs to happen to be a donor? Let's see. Okay, reproductive lawyers. So you want to make sure that when you are matched, that they have a really great lawyer that will represent you when you're going over the contract. The intended parents will pay for that. You don't have to find your own lawyer, anything like that. One will be provided to you. But to ask them, who the lawyers are that they mainly work with, you can look them up. You can also ask them who the genetic counselors are that they mainly work with, the psychologists that they work with. If you're a first-time donor, you will have to have a pretty comprehensive interview with a genetic counselor and a psychologist to make sure that genetically and mentally that you're healthy. Check in about who those people are. Do some research on them. And then I've already kind of covered communication, but I would also ask them how often they communicate with you during the cycle. Are you going to be having to reach out to them to figure out what's going on, or are they going to be proactive about letting you know what's happening? When you start the medication, are they able to support you with that? I mean, a lot of times you will be referred to the clinic, which is fine, but if for whatever reason you can't get a hold of somebody at the clinic, will the agency be able to help you? Figure out, again, ultimately, if they are going to be your advocate. You do not want to be treated as an object or something that's just a means to an end. In the case of an agency, just like a paycheck that they get for matching you. You want to make sure that they care about their donors, that your safety and respect for you is more important to them than money and just making a match. You want to make sure that their ethics are more important to them than money. There are so many agencies out there that are amazing and are everything I just described. And there are agencies out there, they're all about that money. It's like a total business for them. There's very little heart. And again, if you're tuning into your intuition when you're looking for an agency, you're going to be able to spot them. If you get kind of like a little icky feeling with an agency, trust that and go somewhere else. If you have any questions about how to find an agency, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. If you have a question about a specific agency, I know a lot about agencies all over the country. I know a lot about the clinics all over the country. Let me know if you have any questions about them in the comments below.